you were an angel, sent from above to carry me to paradise, paradise. But you were born to raise hell. Can't deny it, babe, I like it. That sounds kinda nice, kinda nice. And I'm not gonna tell you twice, but you know you're kinda pretty, right? And if you want it, baby, you could come and spend the night. Angel, sent from above to carry me to paradise, paradise.
Well, it's awesome to speak to you. It's been a while. Last
A
time we
little bit, yeah.
spoke, it was August 2023, and we were in a warm field. Don't get me wrong, it's I don't know where you are exactly, but it is
Yeah.
warm as hell in London right now.
Yeah, that's a while ago actually. God, it doesn't feel like it was a couple of years ago since Bloodstock.
Yeah, Bloodstock 2023 to
Oh,
be
yeah.
exact. So yeah, I'm gonna start you off with a difficult one. Sum up if you can in a handful of words, the past two-ish years as they've been for the Skies Turn Black.
Um, to be fair, things have been fairly steady away, I reckon. Um,
Stuff?
there's been a lot of things going on. It's probably since Bloodstock that has really kind of sort of like helped us, I suppose, to where we are now.
Hmm.
Bloodstock definitely put us on a little bit of a platform where we could start having conversations about things such as management, things such as labels, that kind of thing, which is great. We've got our guy Tom, who's on PR, who's absolutely class. And it's one of those things with PR that when you've done something like Bloodstock,
Yeah.
it really makes his job a little bit easier to try and sort of like sell us and that kind of thing. Um, so it's kind of been a little bit of a little bit of a snowball, really. I think a couple of the moments since Bloodstock that's been really, really, do you know what? A surprise to us actually,
Hmm.
is the fact that we've been playing places that we'd never played before. We'd never gone before Bloodstock. Um, Down south a great deal,
Hmm.
and we had a show at the Fleece in Bristol, and we had a show at the Griffin in Bristol, and we could not believe how many people that were there that were like, "Oh my
Really?
God, you're playing Bristol! Like we've been waiting for you to play Bristol for ages." And like, this isn't what we were expecting, and
Hmm.
it's been such an amalgamation of things to do with sort of like all the way back from album release in 2018, then things to do with Bloodstock, things to do with the single releases and things like that in terms of where people we've sort of like picked up on the way. So to go somewhere like Bristol, where I mean all of us are from like Yorkshire and the north and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and to go down there and have an actual crowd of people that are there that wanted to see us, it's insane. Definitely not what we were expecting.
It is fantastic to hear that. It's fantastic to hear that the snowball has continued to roll as we hit 2025 as well. But ultimately, it's all testament to your hard work as well. Because you can play a festival like Bloodstock and all that, but it means nothing in the grand scheme of things. What comes after is what matters more than anything else. Yes, it can be a great platform, but what you use it for is more important than anything else. So, sticking with the past few years, what particular moments have helped transform the band in a way? In particular moments that I guess have evolved your sound or have been a learning experience enough that you've been able to utilize?
Okay. I mean, if we go as far back as when we released the first album,
Hmm.
we were on a different lineup then,
Yep.
and we had a change of drummer, and we invited Xander to come in as keys player. To be fair, we did have a moment as well where Xander wasn't the keytar player; he was the keyboard player,
Yeah.
and he was static, and he was at the piano. Um, so that's probably been some of the bigger changes has been giving Xander that kind of guitar
Oh
and
yeah.
having the kind of writing influences from Rob and from Xander. Um, that's probably where we've got more of the kind of electronics in the sound, and that kind of thing, in terms of utilizing that. Rob as well. I rate Rob. I think Rob's fantastic. His music taste is not very much like my music taste. We have some interesting
Mm.
conversations about this in terms of what gets each of us excited in terms of music. And for he runs off vibes. He wants the vibes. He absolutely loves his power metal and stuff like that. And if it sounds cool, he's here for it. And whereas some of us are kind of like, want something that's a bit technical and something that makes you go, "Ooh, that's quite cool. Hey, I like that." Um, whereas Rob's just like, "Give me vibes." Yep. If it needs to be a four on the floor kick drum, if it needs to be just like boots and cats, then it needs to be boots and cats. And it's kind of taken the writing is kind of gone from being more about, well, what does this feel like it needs, as opposed to um sort of like trying to cram in as many notes as possible and that kind of thing. It's definitely changed the approach from what we've had.
There's a major part of that just coming from the fact that you have X amount of years of experience. You played live more. You've gotten a bit older. You're just learning more and more each day and each month and so on.
There's elements of that. I mean, in terms of how we've grown individually as musicians,
Mm.
J Jamie, as man on lead and singing, he's probably had some of the more interesting developments musically, because especially over COVID and lockdown, he got
Oh yeah.
well into folk music. Like, yeah, that's the face that I was pulling at first. He's really good at it. Honestly. It's mint. And he plays like the whistle, he plays the flute, he's got loads of like folky percussions and stuff like that. It's like the the album that's coming out next month. Um, we've managed to make a compromise, and there is a flute solo on the last track. And yeah, this is what I mean in terms of growing musically. Because if you'd have said when we were releasing that first album, or even when it was like around when we were playing Bloodstock, are we going to have a flute solo on an album? I'm thinking, why? But now it just works. It just works.
Why have you, well, individually, speak for yourself. Why have you become more open-minded to such a thing?
Well, it's no fun being closed-minded, surely. It's you. There's so many possibilities that can happen with experimenting, and I think as well because us lot as just as friends, um, we I don't feel like we need to sort of like walk on eggshells around each other. If someone does
Mm.
something that's a little bit out there, we don't need to be nervous, like, oh my God, what are they going to think of this kind of thing? Because if it's great, then we're going to go, cool. If it's not, then it's going to go, all right, well, it's fine. It feels like so much of a lower pressure, sort of like around that in terms of writing and coming up with ideas like, should we put a flute solo in, and that kind of thing.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. Last thing I or any fan would want is to hear that you are in a stagnation position where you're not really moving forward. You're not trying new things. You're not experimenting. Hell, sure, lots of times, a few times it may not work, but you'll know that. You'll decide that, or the listener base will when the song gets released. So it's still fun and exciting that you're doing those things.
Definitely feels fun and exciting whilst doing it. It's definitely coming away from that more, how can I put it, like a formulaic approach to a metal tune or a rock tune. It's definitely feeling a little bit more like anything can happen. Yeah.
Good. I'm really glad to hear that. Kind of just sticking with the Bloodstock thing, but more from the major festival perspective. What do you think you learned from playing a major festival like that? And what do you think you need to do to, say, get invited, not just back to Bloodstock, but perhaps to get the eye or ear, the attentions of other major festivals?
It's a really good question. I wasn't expecting anything as hard hitting as that. Wow.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
um, so in terms of sort of like our experience at Bloodstock this time,
Mm.
um, there was we were definitely with our set trying to make sure it's as kind of as action packed as possible.
Yes.
So there was things that we have in our set that with interludes and that kind of thing where it feels very much sort of like a moment to breathe, a little bit expressive and that kind of thing before then tune comes in and drops. Whereas we went in very kind of like hard hitting. One thing that I've kind of realized is that some of those moments definitely kind of make a show. Um, um, Definitely as well from a perspective of how you use the audience. and that kind of thing in terms of involving the audience. I feel like when we were at Bloodstock, we were very much we turned up and we rattled through some tunes and we rattled through a show, and we were happy with it at the end of it. The
Yeah.
response that we got at the end of it was absolutely awesome. I think that if we were to go and approach something like that now, I think that we'd go into it with a slightly different tact, where we can think of the peaks and the troughs of the set. So it's not just at one level all the way through, of just this is just going to be a really fast sort of like electronic power metal kind of vibes. It needs to have the bit of a roller coaster feel of those kind of ups and downs for it to really be as effective as what we want it to be.
Can understand that. I mean, you were up against it at Bloodstock to a certain degree. It was the Jaeger stage. It was Sunday, sort of late afternoon, early evening, wasn't it?
It was, yeah,
Uh,
we were middle of the day on Sunday. I mean, we'd all been there since the Thursday, and
yeah.
I very much felt like I'd been in a field for 4 days. I can remember that Saturday I had to take myself away and just have a little bit of time to myself just during the day.
Yeah.
Where really stupidly I sat in my car and watched the Leeds game on my phone, which I wish I
Okay.
hadn't, because we lost 1-0 to Birmingham. Um, but yeah, sometimes you need this kind of moments to then try and get yourself sort of like psyched up and in the right frame of mind
Yeah.
for it. But it's definitely tough. Um, Feeling ready after living in a tent for 4 days to then play what is sort of like the biggest show of your career so far.
We had members of staff go see and raved about it. In fact, you were in
Oh,
one of our lists of the top bands of the weekend. So you clearly
wow.
were okay enough for them. Um, so well done on that front. But let's
Yeah,
turn our focus to a bit more modern now. Let's talk about kind of what's going on right now, because one of the more significant things, we're talking significant things, is that you have signed to Slip Trick Records,
yeah.
which is fab. How did that come about?
Um, Kind of sort of like, well, we're going to talk about the snowball from Bloodstock, really. So the
Yeah.
snowball from Bloodstock was where we then got into a position with Extreme Management Group. So we've been working with Joe from there. And we've been saying for a bit that we've got a collection of songs that, ideally we want as next release to not be an independent. And we were like, it can be, that's absolutely fine. But if we can be in a position where we've got some kind of like label backing, then that would be awesome. And
Mm.
we essentially had a little bit of a short list of some labels that we were looking at. And Slip Trick was one of the labels that one of Joel's other bands released an album on. So it was Confessions of a Traitor.
Oh.
The Yeah, so they released their first album with Slip Trick, and that was where it kind of like caught eye that this is probably someone that we should reach out to. Yeah.
And it was as simple as that.
Yeah, essentially. And I mean, obviously, when it's this kind of process where you're not just emailing one label. I think it's a little bit of a fantasy story where that happens. A little bit of like a Queen biopic, that it's the one label that picks it up, and oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a slog, and then it's a little bit of a back and forth of the label sussing you out. Sometimes it's you sussing the label out as well, seeing whether
Yeah.
your kind of like visions align, whether there's going to be a great deal of interpretation from the label. But to be fair, that's something that we wanted. We really wanted a little bit of sort of like, we knew that we had a decent product, and that we
Mm.
really liked that. It's more in terms of how you market that, because I mean, from the last lot of singles that we did, we released Skies Are Falling Down, and we branded it as this sort of like really fun power metal tune, which is what it was. And it was sort of like one of the first moments really we had Xander on keytar and those kind of
Yeah.
electronics in it. And then the next track that we did, Sweet Sweet Solitude, is absolutely sound. It's just a little bit more ballady. And
Hmm.
we marketed it as the same as what we did Skies Are Falling Down. So there was one of the YouTube reviews that we were watching, and they absolutely loved Skies Are Falling Down. And then because of we sent it with the same blurb for the second tune, they were like, what's this? Like this isn't what you said it was. So to have that kind of guidance of this is how you should market you, and have someone who's not internal in the band, who's not completely enveloped in the writing process and thinks that they know what it is. To have someone who who can be a little bit more objective to say, no, I don't think that you guys have actually gone down this kind of route.
Yeah.
Because even like with the 2018 album, when we were writing that, I didn't have power metal in my head when we were writing
Mm.
it. And then when Metal Hammer called it a power metal album, I was like, well, that's really cool. I'm really that's absolutely sound. But it just wasn't necessarily the big intention for it when it was coming out, I suppose.
Yeah, but that's a kind of an annoying thing about any aspect of press to a degree, where you get lumbered into a very narrow category. While you can, in a way, be defined at its base level as power metal, to just call you that is unfair. It's got way more
Yeah.
going on. You
Mm.
know this, but ultimately you got to get pigeonholed for fans.
We've
It's that for
yeah.
fans of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, that's an aspect that we've been, I suppose, really struggling with when we've been collating sort of like, because when to pick three bands that we think that this album is for and what it sounds like, when all of us within the band have got such a diverse music taste, and there's parts of songs where I'm like, oh, this is the kind of thing that Enter Shikari would do. But Jamie's like, well, I don't really listen to Enter Shikari, so that doesn't really mean anything to me. And I'm like, oh, well, this is part of a song where, that Electric Callboy would do. And then another member's like, well, don't really listen to them, so don't like we haven't got that same sort of like level of overlap, which is fun when you've got so many different sort of like diverse views on it. But when it comes to then labeling it of like for fans of, it's been a tricky one. Yeah.
Just don't. I say don't do away with all that nonsense. It's listen, I have no skills in marketing, as you can clearly tell, and I hate the idea of even doing it. But yeah, I find that an incredibly frustrating experience, because you're right. You can say, power metal, whatever basic power metal it is, and then alongside that, here's Enter Shikari, and it's like one or
Yeah.
two is going to excite a different. Like the Venn diagram doesn't have as much crossover as you would think.
Mm. And when we're seeing a lot more bands sort of like use sort of like different genres in different ways. Sleep Token's a really good
Of
example of it,
course.
who are taking some of the more poppy elements and putting them in with metal and that kind of thing and that kind of
Yeah.
like sound. And in a similar way with us, if you say that Sleep Token's a metal band, and then you listen to sort of like, Do You Wish That You Loved Me and things like that, you're like, it's not metal. Like what you on about? But the overall package, yeah, it absolutely is. It's just taking all these bits of influences from other places, and if you can chop and change like that successfully, it's a hard thing to do. It's really fun.
Well, I'm glad. I hope you continue to have fun, and best of luck with marketing over over this next year, because this is part of a strong year for you as well. We've already had a really well received single, Angel, and now, as of the time of recording, you are about to drop Lonely Valentine. In fact, as of the time of recording, it's tomorrow. All of this to build to a release that is expected this year. Now, I don't know if I'm just not finding information out here, but I have searched high and low and just about everywhere about trying to work out information about this album that is due to be released this year
Yeah.
at some point. So, what can you tell me about this? I realize it may not be much, but can you share any details?
What do you want to know? Yeah, we can do it. So, the everything in terms of album press, and that is going to be starting from next week.
Oh,
So,
wonderful. There it
so
is.
tonight is when. So tomorrow is the release date. Tonight is the track is being premiered on Kerrang. So Johnny Doom's playing that tonight,
Mm,
which is really cool. Um, I think that the two tracks that we've got out are quite nice little teasers in terms
right.
of what's to come, especially in terms of Angel having the um I call it almost like Motley Crue kind of vibes with the riff. We've got the girl in the video. The lyrics are all a little bit raunchy and that kind of thing.
There's a little glam flavor. I get you. I get you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I read. It's like, well, when we were talking about like the for fans of and that kind of thing, at times we're kind of like, do we sound like Steel Panther if Steel Panther had like really like serious lyrics and that kind of thing? But it's like we can't put Steel Panther as that, but yeah, anyway. And then to have that sort of like that build and then going into sort of like the really electronic drop with the electronic sampled vocals in there, and that kind of thing. I think it's a really good flavor of what's to come. So I'm actually just going to quickly, because I've been getting the album name wrong.
Mm,
Because the al you'll get what I mean in a second.
okay,
Um,
I'm intrigued now.
so I've been getting the album name wrong and been getting it the wrong way around. Um, so the album is going to be called Broken Hearts and Bad Habits. And the idea with the album, from a songwriting perspective, is that the songs are either a broken heart song or it's a bad habits song.
Right.
The songs as a whole, I've been really impressed with where the songs have been going lyrically, just because obviously it's a lot of the time it's Jamie that's written these, Xander's written a few lyrics as well. But for me to know these people and to see how vulnerable some of these lyrics are
Really?
is really interesting.
Mm.
Um, and then even when we're looking at how we're spacing the songs together, Angel's a really relevant one because obviously Angel's a little bit it's a little bit of a raunchy one. Is quite lustful is one way to put it.
Mm.
And then the track that's after it is a track called More Than That, which is suppose of sort of like what you are wick is out of the relationship and in terms of what you're getting for lustful experience. Do you know what I want more than that?
Yeah.
That's kind of where it's coming from. Um, and then some of the especially towards the latter part of the album, things do start to get a little bit raw, and I'm so here for that. And it's obviously because I know them, they're some of my best mates, but it really hits quite hard for me. Um, the fact that, you know, people who are a really close part of my life have felt this.
That's
The last
incredible.
track, Edge of the World, is kind of like our ballady kind of end to it, which I kind of like because I always enjoyed the formula of like metalcore albums, like Homesick, A Day to Remember, and that kind of thing, where you'd have an album that's like absolutely hell for leather, going for it, and then the last track would just be like an acoustic one that'd just make you sob.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, I'm a
I
big fan
love
of that
that.
formula too.
That's not been my influence that's done that. It's been a little bit of a happy accident, really. But yeah, everything with the album so far, is in terms of what we've put out so far, has definitely been setting up as a nice taster. I think that there's going to be a couple that maybe go a little bit more electronic than what people might be expecting.
Okay.
But that's kind of flirting with boundaries is one way I can kind of put that. Yeah.
So to summarize, we got an album that will have familiar Skies Turn Black anthems, but it's an album with a lot more depth than anyone might expect, but also experimental elements that may or may not polarize, I guess.
I'm gonna be confident. I know they polarize. Yeah, I'm here for it. Yeah. I think they do polarize. It's just whether it's that kind of bit is expected, I suppose, from us, which is a little bit interesting. We've kind of set a stall out from track one, to be fair. Um, Track one starts with a really cool sort of like vocoder intro that's been one of our interludes for
Mhm.
the last couple of live shows when we've been trying some of these bits out live. And it's just really hard hitting, sort of like straight into it. Uh, and it's got a nice little dancey section in it, and I think it's really fun. But as much as it's got the really dancey section in it, you take some of those and you strip back some of those electronics, and it's just got big eight like hair metally, glam metally kind of, and just those two sort of like elements just mix really well together.
I'm very excited. I can't wait to get all those details out there and to be following along with the album path because obviously we were experiencing it already with the release of the single Angel and obviously Lonely Valentine as well. But you mentioned live. You've been trying some stuff out live. So you had a run of shows in April, for example. Using those run of shows in April, what have you been airing for? Like, has Angel been played live? What about Lonely Valentine? Is there anything else that's been played live? And what's been the response?
The response, to be fair, the response has been quite good.
Good
So
stuff.
we did the tour with the with a band called Andromedus. Okay,
Hmm.
absolutely love the guys. They're great. As soon as we were doing some electronic elements to our music, and I'd actually seen them at Download, because they played the Download Takeover, and they were EDM metal. They don't have a drummer. They've got Lewis, who's sort of like on decks and doing the DJing kind of thing, and it just works. It's so cool. So if you look at probably some of our, pre-COVID kind of tunes, it doesn't necessarily gel with that kind of thing, whereas a lot of the newer stuff does.
Mm.
Um, they have been quite excited listening to some of the newer sort of like electronic tunes and stuff like that. One tune from the album called The Witness.
Mm.
Um, we've been filming a bit of a live music video that we're putting together for that. So that's going to be out around the album as well.
Cool, cool.
Um, they were particularly excited on that kind of thing. So Lewis, who's the lad on Dex and Andromedus, we're actually working together at the moment to do a Skies Turn Black Andromedus remix
Oh,
um,
wow.
of the tune and that kind of thing, which is really cool. So we were definitely finding that the response from the more modern stuff, the stuff that isn't necessarily out yet, that we are still kind of sort of like playing with live, um, it was it was getting a lot more of the faces that you want when a really heavy bit drops and you get that, that kind of face. We were getting a lot more of that, a lot more head nodding with those kind of sort of like really big grooves, and stuff like that. It's a little bit frustrating. I mean, we've got to try these out live before it gets to sort of like album launch shows and that kind of thing. I think
Mm.
we'd be a little bit silly if we didn't. But we had a show with Downloaded, a Download Festival tribute act, and these lads are class.
Okay.
And that was Wakefield, and it was a packed out room. Uh, about 400-500 people. It was a huge crowd, and we had people coming up to us on the merch, and messaging after, asking for what the set list is because they're looking up the songs that we've just been playing. And we're like, well, this is the set list. We'll tell you which ones are out and which ones aren't. We're gonna have to wait, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We did have we got sent a video of one of the new tracks live, and they're just like, where is this? Where is it? Why can't we listen to this yet? And it's like it's really nice to get that. It's really sweet,
Yeah.
uh, but sorry, you gotta wait a little bit.
Oh, how frustrating. Does that's I imagine it's created a certain level of impatience because as much as you've got to not only follow the formula of building up to a release, you can't just drop it and quietly shadow drop it.
Yeah.
That'd be absurd. But you must at this stage you must be kind of anxious to get this out. This interview will go up after. I've decided this already after the announcements have happened so that it
Okay.
doesn't like preempt anything. So presumably in that announcement, the release date is going to come as well.
So release date is June 27th.
Oh, so we really don't have too much longer to wait then. We're a little over,
No,
well, about a
so
month and a half.
yeah. So you're looking at back end of May. Well, yeah, next week is then when everything's going to be starting from a PR perspective, of the album, and then yeah, it's all systems go. Two singles out, a third music video coming, around then when the album's out as well. So yeah, it's going to be systems go.
I look
We've
forward
been
to
we've
it.
been setting up some of these tracks for a good while. Uh, so yeah, it's an exciting one for us.
Glad to hear. I look forward to it dropping, hopefully, in my inbox. It's quite clear to me you are all united and understand the vision for Skies Turn Black as you move forward. That seems very clever just talking to you here. Is that the case? And how excited are you personally about the future of the band overall?
Um, Well, I think that when we talk about the idea of flirting with boundaries, I think that that's going to happen. That's fair. Okay. There's going to be, I mean, there has been when we're already sort of like we've got album three things that are being sort of like flirted around and things like that. And there's discussions sort of like within, especially whilst we were traveling and we listened to demos, where it's the chat is, well, you know. is this going a little bit too far down that kind of dancey route? Have we been a little bit silly with some of the choices that's been made? But like I said, I think that we're in a position where all of us are comfortable enough to address that without upsetting anyone. I don't think anyone's being particularly particularly overly protective of some of their ideas and that kind of thing, and it makes the collaborative process much easier. So no, I'm definitely feeling like as Skies Turn Black, we have way more found our sound, and we've way more cemented and confident of what that sound is and what a Skies Turn Black show should look like.
Can't wait. I really can't wait. It sounds so exciting, and I'm glad it's going to happen in the first half of the year, because in the latter half of the year we can really dig into the album over time, see where you're playing live, and just look forward to more to the future. And particularly from the experimental aspect, I just want to stress again how excited I am for that side of things. I want a combination of, hey, here's a bit of Halloween mixed with Electric Callboy mixed with Meshuggah. Why the hell not? It's fucking
Yeah,
blast.
yeah, I'm here for it. Yeah,
As am I. Dan, we're out of time. Thank you so much for taking the
all
time to
good,
speak
man.
with me again. It's a real
I
pleasure.
really appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It does help us out. You can find us at gbhbl.com and across all social media platforms. And if you really want to give us a bit of extra support, please consider buying us a cup of coffee over on our coffee page. Thank you.